Oracle Coalfields stock was the third best performer on the alternative investment market in 2015. In fact, it was the best miner on that index overall, up 493%. The company has been developing a coal project in Pakistan for a number of years, but what happened in 2015 to boost its shares? As it's still a long way off its target to build a coal mine that will produce sufficient coal per year to fuel a 600 megawatt power station. Shahrukh Khan is chief executive. He joins us now. Shahrukh, welcome. Very briefly, let's wind the clock back and take a look at 2015. What was behind this amazing rise in the share price over the year?
Okay. Well, there were a number of things. The key thing, as we set out our plans for the year, we are working towards financial close for the project, and for that there were a number of key milestones to deliver. First and foremost was to have our documentation submitted to the government agencies, relevant government agencies, for the issuance of the letter of intent that allows us to develop power plant project. Secondly, for the power evacuation on the national grid. And thirdly was our inclusion in the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which is very important because that allows for access to the very funding for both the integrated coal mining and power generation.
Where is the company now? Let's take a look at the share price because we can get a feel for how the shares have risen. And in fact, we've got a rise as well at the beginning of this year. It's down a touch as of this Thursday, but the stock is up since the beginning of this year when we've seen the markets empty out in a really big way. Whereabouts is Oracle Coalfields in the progress towards that final goal? Okay.
Our targets are very clear. We are working on a number of documentation to take it to the point that the commercial sanctity of the project is intact and that we can actually take it to financial close. And that is that we are working towards finalizing our power purchase agreement, our coal supply agreement, the implementation agreement that allows for a guarantee on the power purchase from the government of Pakistan, which is a basic requirement certainly from the Chinese side. And also the EPC contracts. We are short of finalizing our EPC term sheets. This is important with our Chinese partners, both for the mine and for the power plant. That will then allow us to prepare the financing term sheets, which is also underway. We've engaged our lawyers not only in the UK but also in Pakistan, who have been working towards preparing those documents that have that very bankability, so that we can have a speedy delivery to financial close.
Okay, what does the financial close involve? How much money are you going to have to raise?
Okay, from the outside this project has been substantial in terms of the project size. This is open pit mining, 4 million tons a year for a 600 megawatt power plant. In its totality it's about $1.6 billion project that includes the cost of finance. We've had interaction with the Chinese in reference to the term sheet when it comes to the financing terms, but on the equity element it's roughly 30%, some $400 million, which sounds like a big number, but in the context of the project and the type of stakeholders involved, the appetite is there for that. But in order to successfully deliver, we have to make sure that we have those very binding agreements that allows them that comfort to inject the equity.
But what evidence do you have that the appetite is indeed there? Because you mentioned China, and China is what appears to be the very deep root of the problems that the markets have at the moment.
Well, we are in what is called Block 6. This is our project.
Within the Sindh province?
In the Sindh province. That's a 100% private sector project. There's another block, Block 2, which is adjacent to our block. That's a public-private partnership. They are also included in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the CPEC, just like as we are. They've been able to successfully complete all their documents and are expected to financial close in the near future, in coming weeks most likely. As I understand, they've already signed their loan agreement. The very stakeholders that have been engaged on the China side, particularly on the financing, will more or less will be ours. For example, the involvement of Sinosure that underwrites the debt, and the number of Chinese banks. They have actually moved forward and executed these agreements, which gives this project the comfort to take it to financial close. I would like to add one more thing. not only this, because this is Thar coal, there are other projects outside Thar coal, which are using imported coal, are also working towards financial close. So this year is a very interesting year in Pakistan, where a number of projects in the pipeline are working towards getting the project financed and moving towards project development, all in the energy sector, which is quite unusual in the context of the global scenario where money seems to be, or remains to be tight. But if you look at it as country-specific and project-specific, there is deal flow underway, and there is appetite to fund, particularly if you're in the energy sector, which is the need of the day. So I would say watch the space, not just ourselves, but also the projects around us that are working towards concluding their financing agreements.
In terms of the money, is it all going to be Chinese money, or are you going to come to London to raise? I mean, what's the plan?
Yeah. Unlike the other projects, I must say, ours is exceptional because we are in the capital markets. We are a UK company listed on the AIM market of the London Stock Exchange, so we have access to a wider international audience. And from the outset, we've done our best to warm the interest of international investors, not just in the UK, but also in Europe, the Far East, the Middle East, and also mainland China. We trust that by the engagement we've had with a range of institutional investors and private, that they will be able to continue that support that we need, particularly if we're able to demonstrate those very agreements that will be approved by the Chinese side for the loan financing. So it's a chicken-egg situation when it comes to loan and equity, but demonstrating by the evidence that we see that they are prepared to sign loan agreements, which are more than billion-dollar transactions, then there's a comfort level coming to our side that we can actually proceed and get the interests of equity investors. I might add one more thing, if I may. This is an attractive project from the outset. It has fiscal incentives, which makes it appealing even for the other projects, certainly with Thar coal. You have a project internal rate of return of 20% in dollar terms and an ROE north of that in dollar terms. This is attractive not only for equity investors, but also for lenders. And also makes it very appealing so that you can move towards project development and build an open cast mining. In our case, at this moment of time, it will be the largest private sector mining and power generation project. But there's another one which is public-private, which is equally large. But our responsibilities are very different because we are engaged with a much wider international audience. Good for the country, very refreshing, because it's a major foreign direct investment.
One final question has got to be about the future of coal as a source for fuel for driving these power stations. There's been some big meetings recently, very high-level meetings in France, and the move seems to be from big government away from coal. Right. What do you say about that?
If you put the politics aside and look at the commercial need for fuel or coal in Pakistan, then you've got a government today that is fully supportive. That said, we have corporate responsibility, and that is to be guided by international standards. All our documentation, all our work has been done under IFC, World Bank, and Equator principles. That said, when we actually do the operations, we are going to be engaging some of the best experts to make sure that it's done within that norm. And I must say that the Chinese also in our partnership are also equally conscious. As far as if you look at, if I can just summarize very quickly, the context of coal in the country's energy mix, right now represents less than 1%. Once our project is up and running and the other projects which are also in the pipeline that come good, our total production within the next 20 years is circa 15 to 20 million tons a year, more or less. If you look at it in the context of global coal operations, we don't even come into anyone's radar. Your major focus is on China and India, which have more than 500 million tons of coal consumption. Even if they were to reduce it, they won't reduce it to the levels of 20, 30, even 60 million tons a year. So we don't, in that context, fit. But when you look at the support that we're receiving from federal government and provincial, there is keenness to deliver this. Because to us, this is not a coal operation as such, it's a fuel operation. Yeah. And as I just mentioned earlier, the financial close are happening on the back of a coal operation.
Okay, 2016, just quickly sum it up, and what the incentive is for investors to get in at this level.
Last year was a foundation building process to work towards finalizing and signing those very agreements. And I remind that we're working towards finalizing the EPC documentation. We're working towards finalizing the power purchase agreement, the coal supply agreement, and the implementation agreement. Those agreements will converge into a bankable document that this year that will allow for financial close. So it's a very important year for us. We have obviously been doing this business for some time. When we started the project, it was an unregulated, uncharted territory. Now there is regulation around this. Now people are becoming much more comfortable with project development and thorough coal at large. And so in view of the successes we're seeing around us, there's no reason why this year is going to be one of our best years.
Shahrukh, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
That's Shahrukh Khan. He's the Chief Executive of Oracle Coalfields.